Hi, everybody. Welcome. I hope everybody's over their Kringle hangovers. Now we have the Kringle weather outside, but if you remember, I told you back in March it would be sunny on Kringle weekend, and it was. We're going to start with Rotary Bucks. Ryan can't join us today. He's just got home from Saudi Arabia late last night, so we're going to ask Susie to do our Rotary or our Happy Bucks again. So you got a bucket. All right, good. But you need a microphone. So the people at home can enjoy. Sorry.
Okay, so the people at home can see us. So who's got something great? I know we're all excited that Kringle Holiday Village is behind us, right? So that's a lot of things.
So my great thing is I got to spend lots of time with Betty Farr this last week. She was our Mrs. Claus at Kringle, did an amazing job with story time. But she is an inspiration and an awesome part of a child's haven that's near and dear to my heart. So that's been lots of fun for me.
Betty is a Greenville legend, just for sure. Who else? Who else has some happy news they want to share with us? Happy Bucks. Don't let me down. Don't let Ryan be embarrassed. Here we go.
I'm happy to say that my son is being deployed tomorrow. It's not great news, but it's good news, and just happy that he's going. He'll be going to Poland. So,
Awesome. Tell him thank you for his service.
All right. Lisa last time said she'd be happy if I was wrong about the outcome of the Carolina Clemson football game. I was wrong, but I am very happy that Clemson is still in the college football playoff and Carolina is not. And there's my money.
Rude, 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 rude. Okay, I think we have some retaliation coming on here. I'm not really sure.
To follow up, Roger, go Tigers, beat Longhorns.
I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to start voting with dollars. Who's going to put in the most bucks, the Tigers or the Cox? Who wants to go? Okay.
Well, I'm happy to join a hedge fund, which is called Global Fund here, and they are on Main Street. So Broad Street Global Fund. And if you guys need no fees and you want to improve your returns, come see Sunny.
So we can plant this and you'll grow it for us. That would be awesome.
I have a little story, and it's from the experience at Kringle this past weekend. I was sitting at the silent auction desk, and someone came along with a really pretty steel sculpture. And I said, "Where'd you get that?" And she said, "From a vendor." And later on, when I had some time, I went to search for her, and I found this gorgeous fish sculpture that I fully embraced. And then I reached in my pocket, and what do I have but a Talbot's credit card? And a few dollars in cash. I had nothing other than that. So she says to me, "How about Venmo?" And I said, "I don't do Venmo because 3 years ago I lost $1,200, but by being fraud." And so she said to me, "How about Zelle?" And I'm going, "I don't have my phone with me." So then at the very end, she said, "You know, you look really honest. I'm going to let you take this sculpture with you. Send me a check." So that's what I did. And, you know, honesty and it was just striking to me that she had such faith in me. So yes, I got the check out the next day.
It's great that we still have faith in humanity, and some folks allow us to do that. So that is certainly something to be happy about.
I would like to congratulate Russell Stahl, who somewhere on the other side of 50 is about to get his PhD in urban planning from Clemson University. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Anybody at this table? Anybody here? Going once, going twice. We got some more happiness. Anybody back here before I move back to the front? I'll come back. Okay, I'll come back. Don't worry. I'll come back.
Okay. So I'm happy that I just got back from the Galapagos 2 weeks. Anybody want to know about the Galapagos? Just ask me. And one of the first people I met on the ship was a Canadian Rotarian. So we had a lot of conversations about Rotary.
It is amazing to explore Rotary through other cultures and other communities. Anybody over here? I think that about wraps us up. Oh, wait, one more. Go Cox.
So many things I'm happy about today. I'm just trying to decide which one to tell you. But how about if I tell you that I am not related to anybody in the news?
That's awesome. I think we all kind of feel that way. Thank you, guys.
You know, that is the first thing I wondered when I saw that name. Thank you, everybody, for that. One last Kringle thing. We had one silent auction item left. It's art. If anybody would like this, please see Jane. It's $80. Is that what you said, Jane? Okay, very good. Okay, on the topic of Kringle, let me find my stuff. Everybody who was involved with Kringle, committee member, volunteers, sponsors, whatever, would you just stand for a second and give ourselves a big round of applause? And of course, special thanks to Jane and Marty, who have forgotten what their family members look like at this point. But special thanks. So announcement wise, let's see. We have some guests from Alexander Elementary. I'm just trying to, oh, back there in the back. So we have last month's staff member of the month, Kayla Castillo. And then we have December staff person of the month, Giselle Cravener. And this month's teacher of the month, Stacy Campbell. With us today. And I said earlier, winning Alexander Teacher of the Month, that's like winning the SEC versus the ACC. But congratulations and thank you for joining us here today. We have our After Hours Club Holiday Social is coming up this Thursday at 5:30, our last event of the year. Next Friday, the 13th, we have an event at Alexander, their lunch, where we're basically going to go help them watch their kids while they enjoy a little Christmas lunch from us. There is a schedule out there for those of you who are Alexander readers. You can try and cover, so you know the kids. That's what I'm trying to do, is try and cover your classroom's lunchtime. So there's a schedule out there that Jenny has. And next Tuesday is kind of a light agenda. It's kind of a holiday social, and we'll have kids here from the governor's school playing some music for us. So we won't have a speaker next month. The last thing I made a note to myself, I heard this, the winner of Kringle Cash, which was $2,250 approximately. This woman won the money and she said, this is found money. Therefore, I'm going to donate it to a friend of my daughter's who just suffered a house fire. And I just think that's fantastic. And you'll see more about it in the news. Very good. If you could bow your heads for me, we'll do our invocation and pledge. Let us take a moment to reflect with gratitude. We gather here today in fellowship and shared purpose, united by a commitment to serve others and improve our communities. May our discussions inspire meaningful action, and may we approach our work with wisdom, kindness, and respect for all. Together, may we all make a positive difference in the world. Amen. If you'd rise for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good. We have guest and visiting Rotarian introductions. Jeff is going to come up. Jeff?
Good afternoon, everybody. Jeff Pettis. If the following guests could please stand and remain standing. I believe did Trent just show up? There we are, guest of the club. Hi, Trent. Holly Pritchard, who's a guest of Christina Viland. Tom Murphy, who's my guest. And Marion Reeves. Andrea is a guest. Would give us a warm welcome, yeah?
All right. we got woefully behind in new member introductions, especially with our full agendas lately. So what we decided to do, because it's logistically difficult to get the people here, so we have prepared new member videos and we'll see how these go. So if you go ahead and hit it, please. We'll start with Hunter.
I am personally from Georgia and I moved to Greenville, South Carolina about a year ago. I have been with the Better Business Bureau for 8 years and I grew up in foster care and I'm a big Georgia Tech fan, Dallas Cowboy fan. I enjoy giving back to people. I enjoy giving back to my community and supporting those people that are in need. I joined the Rotary Club of Greenville because it holds the same values that I do. I enjoy giving back to people that are in need and helping those that may not be as fortunate as others in the community. And I believe it takes civic organizations such as the Rotary Club to help advance missions in our community and to help those in need rise above the cause and do great things in the area. My first area in the club of helping is actually going to be with Kringle. We have actually sponsored a $2,500 sponsorship towards Kringle, and myself and a couple of our staff members at the Better Business Bureau will be volunteering to assist in Kringle this year.
I am an upper cervical chiropractor. I'm also a cat mom, and my love language is physical touch and spending time with those that I care about. So initially I joined on the advice of one of my business coaches, but I stayed because I like the idea of being in a group where people are constantly thinking of how to help improve someone else's quality of life. And I love being able to help the people in my community live their best life by taking care of their nervous system. So currently I'm helping Jane Dyer with the Kringle Village. Because of the nature of my office, unless I can find a service area where I can sit in front of my computer for a short time, it's hard for me to do anything else since much of my time requires being in the office, taking care of my patients.
My name is Christina Wieland. Growing up in a family of German entrepreneurs with 4 siblings taught me 3 things: to love, to work hard, and to follow my passion. My passion has always been to take care of people the best possible way, so I decided on a career in the luxury hotel industry. After years with Ritz-Carlton and other large companies, I started my own business in human resources, consulting, and coaching. Together with my husband Uli and our 2 sons, Philip, age 15, and Felix, age 12, I just recently moved to Greenville. I joined the Rotary Club of Greenville because I'm looking forward to finding many new friends and to work with like-minded people towards a common goal, to make a difference. Motivated by the example of my father, a founding member of a Rotary Club in Germany, I'm looking forward to love, to work hard, and to follow my passion. My first area of service in the club will be the membership committee. I joined this fantastic team because I think that I can use my talents and my expertise in order to be there for you and for potential new members. I'm looking forward to inspire and motivate many people. I'm also planning on supporting the great Career Day team, and it was a pleasure to support the Book Nook build and the Kringle team. So let's love, work hard, and follow our passions together.
Anyway, good afternoon, and it's great to see all of you all. It's my honor to introduce Dr. Courtney Tollison Hartness, a distinguished public historian and scholar whose work has profoundly impacted our understanding of history, particularly in Greenville, South Carolina, and in the upstate. She's Greenville's version of Indiana Jones. I bet you've never been compared to Indiana Jones, but certainly minus the whips and boulder chases. Dr. Tollison serves as the distinguished university public historian and scholar at Furman, where she brings history to life and shapes young minds, teaching and public engagement. A Fulbright scholar and an expert in modern American and public history, Dr. Tollison has authored 3 books. I didn't bring it up. Of which the current one is recently published, and they are available at the back table when you leave. Hopefully she won't have to carry any back. Thank you. She won't have to. Yes. She doesn't want to have to carry anything back to her car. So be generous. I don't know. Look in the index, see if we have whips. She has authored 3 books, curated acclaimed music exhibits, contributed to documentaries, and conducted over 100 oral histories. She's been a driving force behind several prominent historical memorials and exhibits in Greenville, including the major Rudolph Anderson Memorial. Dr. Tollison, or Dr. Hartness's leadership extends beyond academia. She serves on many boards, advocates for historic preservation, and contributes regularly to local and national media. Please join me with a hearty welcome to the Rotary Club of Greenville, Dr. Courtney Hartness, a passionate historian, educator, and gift to Greenville.
I loved that introduction. Thank you so much. That was definitely, I'm going to move this, among the more unique and fun and entertaining introductions I have ever had, and I loved it. Thank you so much. And congratulations, Russell. Wow. That's a big undertaking with your PhD. And he is, I'm sure many of you know the work that Russell is doing. There's definitely a lot of crossover between what he's been researching and the material covered in this book. And so it's going to make, his work is going to make a very important contribution and hopefully in a very long lasting way to this community. And I really applaud the work that you've been doing. Thank you. There's a very old and quirky liquor store on East Bay Street in Charleston. And it has a sign that I really love in the window, and it says, "All visitors bring joy. Some by coming, some by going." So it's nice to actually be invited back to speak to this group. I was here in 17 and I was here in the fall of 20, and I'm trying to remember if I did that remotely. Were you guys meeting in person in the fall of 20? I really can't remember. May have been recorded. I don't know. Anyway, we're here today, thank goodness, in person. There is a chapter on the Spanish influenza and in Greenville in this book. And I wrote it during COVID, which was an experience that we can talk about later if you're interested. So last summer, USC Press published this book. And for those of you who engaged in long-term writing projects, you often know that what you end up writing is not what you originally planned to write at the beginning. In the summer of 2014, a Furman student and I began doing research on Greenville during World War I, when countries over in Europe were engaged in their centennial commemorations of the outbreak of World War I. And I thought, no problem, I'll have a book out in 3 years to coincide with the 100-year commemoration of the United States entering this war. No big deal. Just a quick aside, about 15 years ago, my friend Don Kuntz and I engaged in a pretty exhaustive World War II in the Upcountry Project. And it originally began, I know he's not here today, he's out of town. It originally began with a focus exclusively on veterans, but Don was rightfully insistent that it include a bigger story involving the home front textile industry. With this project, I also realized there was a bigger story to tell. And I realized that the war was a very important catalyst, but it was one of many catalysts in the story that needed to be told. So this book didn't take 3 years, it took 9. Apparently I was busy doing something with whips and all kinds of Indiana Jones things along the way as well. It's fuzzy. Now I have to live up to Harrison Ford today. As I wrote in the introduction to this book, between the 1870s and 1920s, as a result of the area's industrial prowess, New South boosterism, progressive era civic engagement, and the Great War, Greenville evolved into a modern city. So the story I ended up telling begins just after the Civil War, when most white Greenvillians refused to celebrate the 4th of July. It was a holiday for African Americans and Yankees. In 1916, however, an electric sign that dominated the downtown skyline proclaimed "Our country first," then Greenville. 5 years after the Civil War, not even 3,000 people lived in the city of Greenville, but by the mid-1920s, the city population had grown over 10.5 times. And while the county represented about 5% of the state's population, it paid 35% of the state's corporate income taxes, more than any other county. 100 years ago, Greenville was the New South, ambitious, strategic, and passionate in its pursuit of progress and modernity. So how did this happen? These are the questions I ask. Who and what motivated such growth? This book examines Greenville's evolution from the Athens of the upcountry to the Pearl of the Piedmont to the textile of the capital of the South to Convention Center to progressive Greenville. They were motivated by the slogans you see on the right. They embraced the Greenville spirit, which they defined as courtesy, confidence, and progressivism. Local leaders, as part of this story, established the state's first Rotary Club here, this Rotary Club, in 1916. But even before that, men who would become future Rotarians were critical to this evolution. Soon after the Spanish-American War, a small group that included Alistair G. Furman, Rotarian, and Joe Serene Stadium, Rotarian, successfully recruited a U.S. Army training facility. Camp Weatherhill's population of men, who came mostly from the northeastern states, temporarily doubled the size of the city. 33 years after the Civil War, in a community that had just erected a 28-foot-tall statue of a Confederate veteran on its main street, these forward-thinking business leaders chose to collaborate with the federal government and the Army that had defeated their fathers because they knew it would be economically advantageous. Judy Bainbridge has written that the camp also, quote, lessened residents' fear and distrust of Northerners and helped to begin to renew white Greenvillians' sense of American identity and patriotism. So white Greenvillians started to think of themselves not just as Southerners, but also as Americans again. By 1900, Greenville caught the attention of the New York Times. Prosperity could not have marked for special favor a prettier town in South Carolina than Greenville. Greenville was developing magnificently and represented the very best of the industrial awakening. Greenville was economically successful because its civic and business leaders embraced and pursued a New South vision. New South cities were Birmingham, Greensboro, Charlotte, Atlanta, Greenville, and they embraced a modern economy grounded in factories, mines, and mills, and chose not to remain stagnantly rooted in the old agrarian South. Local business leaders also engaged in extraordinary New South boosterism and what we would call branding today. Greenville's industrial growth and New South status occurred simultaneously with the progressive era. The combination was absolutely dynamic. If you think back to your high school and college history courses, the progressive era was an intense national reform movement that engaged the masses in causes that they believed progressed society. So we're talking about prohibition, women's suffrage, beautification, education, healthcare, and post-Civil War national reconciliation. In the first decade of the 20th century, Greenville was ambitious and vibrant with a robust economy, a limited yet successful record of collaboration with the federal government, and lots of progressive era enthusiasm. And then war erupted in Europe in the summer of 1914. As Europe raged, Greenvillians remained committed to bettering their community. They established the state's first Rotary Club. They built the city's first apartment buildings, Davenport Apartments, and a new courthouse, which is where M. Judson is. Well, no, did I skip one? Yeah, here we go. Despite the economic tumult created by the war in the textile industry, leaders cemented the city's identity as the textile capital of the South when it opened Textile Hall, which you can see up there. There's a sign, a historic marker near St. Mary's Church where Textile Hall was. Textile Hall was a location not only for the biennial Southern Textile Exposition, but also for concerts, sporting events, and conventions. More people own cars in Greenville than anywhere else in the state. You can see an early license plate. And Greenville led the way in the Good Roads movement that established regulations for that, quote, new plaything of the rich. That's what James M. Richardson called it. In 1916, the Public Health Service selected Greenville as one of 6 sites nationally to conduct a sanitary survey. This is yet another instance of collaboration with the federal government alongside Camp Weatherhill and the Good Roads movement. The city embraced the federal officials who educated the public about sanitation practices and facilities. The chamber and the city planned a celebratory health day that included the unveiling of the city's first electric sign, positioned atop the chamber's building on Main Street. Various community groups, school children, they had all raised money for this widely anticipated addition to the downtown cityscape. The sign featured an American flag and the slogan, "Our country first, then Greenville." The Greenville Daily News acknowledged the importance of this because, quote, in the South, the flag is not always applauded. It represented, as I wrote in the book, a rejoining of the national fold, pride in the city's recent and beneficial collaborations with federal authority, support for the country and president during a time of war overseas, and satisfaction in the community's modernity and economic strength. It was part of a strategy. Within weeks, the chamber released the inaugural edition of a monthly periodical they hoped would advance the community spirit, attract business to the area, and promote the welfare of the mountain city. They named it Progressive Greenville, and it's a precursor of our Greenville Journal. For years, I was captivated by the words that Greenvillians had chosen for this sign. In 1916, just 50 years after the Civil War, I knew that Greenville had a more diverse economic base than a lot of other Southern communities before the Civil War. And I knew that business and social progressives were forward thinking, and I knew that they'd had a record of successful collaboration with the federal government. But this was still surprising and exceptional. It would have made a lot more sense if this sign had been placed in 1917 or after 1917, after the United States had entered the war and intense nationalism consumed much of the country. And then I remember I was in Charleston one afternoon and I was engaged in another search for old Greenville postcards on eBay. And suddenly a new one I'd never seen before caught my attention, and I enlarged on my phone. Couldn't believe what I was looking at. I've been studying local history for a long time at this point, and I'd never seen a picture. I'd been reading about the sign for years, and I'd never seen a picture of the sign. There it was. So I knew then that this book not only had a title, but it also had a cover, and that is the postcard that appears on the cover. Let's talk about the Great War. In April of 1917, Greenvillians awoke to this newspaper headline. On page 61 of the book, I wrote that dutiful support of the president, remember Woodrow Wilson we're talking about, who lived in Columbia during his youth. Dutiful support of the president combined with the heightened civic engagement of the progressive era, and shortly evolved into nationally significant participation in the war effort. Over the course of the summer of 1917, major players at the federal and state levels turned Greenville into a total war machine, with the local community contributing significantly through manpower, volunteer efforts, economic means, industrial production, and the hosting of a military encampment. Once again, the local community benefited. Camp Sevier trained over 100,000 men, or about 20,000 more people than the population of the county. The camp represented an unprecedented period of cooperation between Greenville and the federal government. Relationships between soldiers and local women were also unprecedented. Applications for marriage licenses set a new local record in the week before Christmas, 1917. The thriving economy supported a frenzied building boom. We're standing in a building that was part of it. Frenzied building boom in the 1920s that created new neighborhoods and changed the downtown skyline. This building, the Woodside Building, of course, no longer exists, but you can see where it was right here. It was demolished in 1973. And these are some new neighborhoods that were built. Beecham and LeGrand is an architectural firm that designed a lot of the buildings that appeared in Greenville in the 19-teens, excuse me, and 1920s, including these elementary schools. These two buildings, the building across the street, and this hotel that we're in right now. And also Augusta Road was paved, Augusta Street, I guess technically. We all call it Augusta Road, don't we? It was paved just before the war in 1913, and Greenville Country Club moved from Sans Souci over to its new home where it is today, over off of Augusta Road. The thriving economy also nurtured progressive era causes, and locals took great pride in their civic and philanthropic participation. During a Rotary regional conference, signs read, "Progressive Greenville welcomes Rotarians." Articles in Western North Carolina towns, their newspapers referred to progressive Greenville citizens and boasted that they, quote, experienced the spirit of progressivism trickling over the ridge into their towns. There was a lot of pride here. From the 1870s to the 1920s, Greenville evolved into a modern city. You can see all that occurred here in the 1920s. It's truly, truly remarkable. The Greenville spirit inspired an immense outpouring of civic engagement and boosterism as Greenvillians aspired to live up to their self-titled reputation as progressive Greenville. Chamber did a really good job coming up with these names. By the time Black Tuesday prompted the Great Depression in the fall of 1929, dozens of Greenvillians had spent decades being deeply and exceptionally invested in their community in ways that continue to benefit and impact our community 100 years later. William Faulkner wrote, "The past is never dead. It's not even past." History and the context it provides is ubiquitous. Most of us aren't consciously aware of it, but it provides a context within which we ascribe meaning to the events of our lives today. My final chapter in this book makes links between the Greenville of 100 to 130 years ago and today, including E.B. Holloway, Unity Park, who and why the 1890s Confederate statue was erected, and debates over it today, and Mary P. Gridley and Viola Neblett. This is her home. And the historical marker, this is behind Downtown Presbyterian Church. These were erected as part of a national effort during the centennial of women's suffrage. And I'm working with Steve Navarro to put another historical marker that will look like this near Mary P. Gridley's residence. This is Mary P. Gridley and all of her mother and her sisters having tea. They were all suffragists here in Greenville, and she had what was described as a beautifully stately mansion where the main post office is today. And so we can't, that's federal property, and that's really too much of a headache. So we can't put the marker there, but we're going to put it right across the street from where her house was when that building is completed. Perhaps the most fun aspect of writing this book, however, was discovering some truly fascinating Greenvillians, people who lived in our community. These are just some of the men and women who shaped this community 100 years ago. And by reading their letters and reading their journals and looking through photographs of them and their families, I really loved getting to know them. And I'm happy to point out some of my favorites if you guys want to hear. The last time an academic press published a historical treatment of Greenville in this depth was 30 years ago when A.V. Huff, I love A.V. Huff, he's been a wonderful mentor to me. A.V. Huff published his landmark study of the history of Greenville. This book is significant because it also offers the very first published history of the local women's suffrage movement and of African-American life in Greenville during this time period. If you're a Furman fan, it also has a chapter on Furman during World War I, which is sort of a path to discuss colleges and universities across the nation during World War I. And I mentioned the chapter on the Spanish influenza. Many of these individuals are buried in Springwood, Richland, and Christchurch cemeteries. Their homes, many of them remain standing on Crescent Avenue, Mills Avenue, Washington Street, and in Sans Souci. Many of the institutions they established remain part of this community's fabric. We are surrounded by them and their legacy. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions. I've got 20 books out there. And I'm happy to sign some if you want to give some as Christmas presents. Yes. It was removed. I'm trying to think of the decade it was removed in. I actually looked into this. I think it was removed in the 1930s. It had been damaged by some storms, and my understanding is that it was just taken apart. Yeah, it was a huge deal at the time. It was the first electric sign, and anything to do with electricity in 1916 was a really big deal. No, but I mean, I can talk about that. It's, my understanding is that it's named for Nathaniel Greene, who was a general in the American Revolution. He was like a son to George Washington. And many people think it's because we're so lush and beautiful and green. But, all records indicate that it was named for Nathaniel Greene. And there is a statue, I'm sure you all have seen it outside the Upcountry History Museum, just a very brief, description of Nathaniel Greene and his wife, Catherine. I'm really interested in them actually, and in the experience of what happened to them afterward. His wife, Catherine, I believe, had roots in Connecticut, and I think they also spent some time maybe on the Georgia coast. He was in the Southern campaign. He was sort of the mastermind with Daniel Morgan of the American Revolutionary War Southern campaign, which didn't, a lot of those battles didn't quite work out in the Patriots' favor, but it was extremely important to the overall. Why am I talking about American Revolution? Excuse me. But it was extremely important in terms of winning the overall war effort. And so I was at the Cloister on Sea Island in Georgia a few years ago, and I was walking through this old, beautiful room, which I thought was original, and I felt completely duped because they had actually rebuilt it. It was an exact replica, and I was like, I thought this was anyway, it was not the original, but they had gorgeous portraits. And I looked up and there was a portrait of Nathaniel Greene and of Catherine Greene. So if you're ever in the Cloister, go visit the portrait of Greenville's namesake there. Yes, hi. My understanding, I had not heard that. My understanding was that there were so many young professionals who were attracted to Greenville. Greenville had this incredible, I usually have a chart of tracking the population from the end of the Civil War to 1930 with the census is just, whoosh, it's just unreal how many people moved here. Keep in mind, you've got a lot of very rural folks coming across into South Carolina from rural North Carolina, Western North Carolina. Lots of people coming in here from rural communities to take advantage of the booming textile industry and the new jobs in the factories that were offered. But my understanding is that this was built because housing at a premium, housing during World War I was awful. People throughout town were renting out rooms, any bit of spare space that they had, this practice stops during World War II, but up until World War I, a soldier traveled somewhere for training. It was not uncommon for his wife and his family to travel with him and stay in the city where he was training before he departed for Europe or wherever, in this case, Europe. So there's a tremendous housing shortage in Greenville, and you have this incredible housing boom with all the neighborhoods and everything that I was talking about. And my understanding is that Davenport Apartments were part of that, there were a lot of young professionals who wanted to be close to the center city, and that's why they were built. One of my favorite people in this book is this guy, Newton H. Fogg, who came down from Maine because he just fell in love with Greenville, and he considered himself the most progressive of all Greenville citizens. They took really a lot of pride in this progressive label. And he had plans for housing, but he had all kinds of plans to like lower the insurance rate on the city's property by cleaning out things so it wasn't so much of a fire hazard. But my favorite plan of his was the Fog plan. No, Fog plan, in which he was going to address the food shortage during World War I as well by putting hogs all throughout people's backyards throughout Greenville. This is a man, we talked about just, the Chamber of Commerce, branding Greenville. We talked about Convention City, which is a name for Greenville you don't often hear. But there were a lot of hotels built. You had the Imperial Hotel, and it added actually several stories. That was built in 1912. And then, of course, this hotel built in the 1920s. And people would come to Textile Hall for all kinds of like dental conventions, like car convention, like every kind of convention you can imagine, because there were these economic missionaries from the chamber that would travel up and down the East Coast promoting Greenville and telling people to come here. They also hosted veterans reunions for Weatherhill and for Sevier. But Newton Fogg printed 1,000 postcards of Greenville and distributed them all throughout Maine. He was one of the economic missionaries who's trying to get people to move down here. I saw another question over here. Yeah. Hi. Because of collaborations with the federal government, Greenville had prospered in part because of collaborations with the federal government. Yeah, sure. So what we're talking about there is the collaboration with the U.S. government and the United States Army with Camp Weatherhill, which increased the population here and brought a lot of what we would call modernity. That's a totally subjective concept. I'm like, how can we be when I was writing this book, I was like, this word modern, what is modern? It's a completely subjective term in this like elusive, modernity, but, we're all comparing it to what has come before us. So that collaboration was very important and it was successful. And then they had the Health Day collaboration. These were when officials from the U.S. Public Health conducted the sanitary survey here, and the Chamber of Commerce hosted these federal officials for about 12 months, gave them office space in the chamber. And they went through these communities, textile mill communities all throughout, and had over 300 public programs educating people about, there's the privy. Educating people about sanitation practices. And so Greenville's score after this year was much improved. And Greenville is one of the healthiest cities in the United States. They took a lot of pride in that. And then finally, there was a lot of wealth here. I mean, the idea that we have, the fact that we had more cars registered here than anywhere else in the state is really a reflection of the wealth that was here in this community. And so one of the progressive era causes was the development of roads. And I'm a big fan of James M. Richardson. He was a mayor of, I think, Fountain Inn, very involved in local politics here in the upcountry. I think he was a member of this Rotary Club too. And I have a manuscript that he wrote that spent decades in the attic of his barn before being discovered. And I'm trying to do something with it. But he had a car, and he goes in detail in this manuscript. He was the one who called it that new plaything of the rich. But he talked about how horses were just absolutely terror-stricken at the sight of a car. So you've got horses going crazy. People, you didn't have regulations about which side of the road to drive on, about like honking your horn, all kinds of things. So this was really a safety issue. And Greenvillians were part of this national progressive good roads movement But part of that was they had to work with state and federal authorities in the development of these roads. And Greenville roads really, I mean, you definitely have some examples of paving and before the war with like Augusta Road and Buncombe also between downtown and heading out to Taylor's Camp Sevier. But after Camp Sevier closed, a lot of the machinery that had been brought down here, they left it here. And so they used a lot of that machinery to further develop local roads in the area. So those were the successful instances of collaboration with the federal government I was referring to. Anybody else? Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. That was fantastic and I learned a lot and I hope I can get out to the lobby fast enough to get one of the 20 books. But anyhow, speaking of books, we will, as usual, donate a book in your honor, which she has already signed to Alexander Elementary. So y'all don't run off until I give you the book. You'll find me in line to buy another book. Anyhow, remember our little thing here. One of them is kind of expired. Kringle's over. If you haven't volunteered for Kringle, that ship has sailed. Please invite somebody to Discover Rotary. December Discover Rotary, we're doing it early, just like our meeting, so it'll be next week. So we kind of the Christmas social, but bring a friend to Discover Rotary at 11 o'clock. We've got a couple people signed up already. Get engaged in your club, get involved in your club. We've got some things coming up. We talked about the after hours club holiday party coming up this Thursday. Next Thursday, we're still doing our coffee. I forgot where it is, but it's in the newsletter and I'll remind you all next week. And last but not least, have fun. So if you please join me in the 4-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?